3, 2. I think that'll work. Yeah.
I can see the light button.
Hey, everyone. So, like, 3 days ago, I got very serious with everyone. And I questioned whether we could record in the way we did. I questioned whether continuing to talk shit, be negative, be just like a total jerk to everyone and everything surrounding MotoGP was something I wanted to put into this world that we have, the new normal, the unprecedented times. It's a good fucking thing I got that shit out of my system, because I don't know if you saw this last race, y'all, but some stuff went down between them making the entire shot be a race for them or watch your heroes from home and taking over actual pictures of the bike, to Marc Marquez doing what Marc Marquez does best and stunting on himself, to the fucking homeboy Fabio, who I desperately want to adopt as my own son, getting his win. Dennis freaking out, texting me at like 4 a.m. Have you watched it? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
5:40, by the way.
Way past on the wrong side of 30 to be up at 5:40 a.m. So get ready. Get your wine. Get your cats if you're Rob, because Dennis, the Grandmaster, is in the house for episode 1 of the new season. BrotoGP Talking Shit is back, son.
It's been like 4 days since the reflection of like, are we going to do it? Are we actually going to talk shit? And definitely going to do it. It's
like the only thing I'm going to do. It's like literally the only. It's not. Are we going to talk shit? Every single word out of my mouth that is not praising Rob's long, luxurious mane or Dennis's sultry, audible chocolate that makes Barry White hide in the closet in shame. We'll be talking shit.
Look, first of all, I just want to know: am I the only one in this crew that watches the races live, like at 5 o'clock in the morning?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, no,
I'm lazy. I wake up in the morning. I do whatever the hell I want. Yeah, no, I watched the race at like noon.
I got woken up by Dennis messaging us at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and then fucking Remy messaging me at like 5:30, being like, yo, did you watch? And I'm sitting here going, I don't even have a video pass. So I got to buy it. I'm like, this race better be worth $140. And Everett's like, it's worth $100. Easy. And then I see that shit, and you can do 4 easy payments.
Word.
$39.99 at MotoGP.com.
Shout out to all our followers who watch the races live, the hardcore ones. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to
gatekeeping MotoGP fandom.
Yeah.
I've now had to approve 2 comments with eggplants because YouTube thinks that's swearing or something.
Right, because the best part about it is we talk about Mark totally destroying the season. We talk about Fabio, SRT, all that. We're also going to talk about Dovi. D's out, eggplants up for the man who's never even gotten a podium at this track. Boom, podium. They got rid of all the Honda tracks. They only got Ducati and Yamaha tracks, and Dovi is in it to win it. The greatest contract holdout in the history of MotoGP is about to go down.
Ooh, that's going to be good. I totally forgot that we need to talk about that as well. But before we get to all that stuff, of course, everyone already knows this, but if you're not on the YouTube and you can't see this huge banner behind my head, this podcast is brought to you by Riders Law. Riders Law are your California motorcycle accident injury lawyers. If you get into any trouble on your motorcycle and you need some legal representation, need some help with your insurance, with medical bills, with anyone taking care of you, Riders Law are your lawyers to call. They're located in Southern California, but they do service the entire state of California, and they're actually branching out into other parts of the country as well. So the list of places that they serve, I don't have the updated ones. So if you are, even if you're on the East Coast, give them a call. And I know they have a few locations out there and they can help you out. So yeah, they support us. They support motorcycle racing with Race Team and Moto America. They obviously love the sport and love everything that we do. So help them out, help us out, give them a call if you need help out, and they'll take care of you.
If you ever wondered why our podcast gets to start with me swearing for 8 minutes straight and then just one quick little plug for one guy as opposed to every other podcast that interrupts you in the middle and has a million commercials and all that, it's basically because of Sai. We've stuck with the one guy. like Nikki said, you danced with who you brought to the dance, or however he paraphrased that. I'm mad drunk already. I'm so deep into this rosé. You have no idea. This is a rosé all day. I haven't stopped drinking French rosé since Fabio won. I also haven't taken this shirt off.
This shirt has been resting on my headrest since when we recorded in March, like when the shirts finally went out, and like I watched the race and it's like, yep, still there. Gonna put it back on. Actually, I took it off for the last recording and put it over there and wore the other shirt. But either way,
now every rider is going to be begging for a BrotoGP shirt.
Ooh,
that's a good look shit. That's the anti-Madden cover.
Kev, people are still surprised that you're in HD now on the feed. They love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what HD stands for, right?
Noticed, actually.
Say that again, Dennis.
I just noticed, actually. I was wondering, man, he looks great. I thought it was just being fit in the pandemic, got that haircut, but no, it's the HD, bro.
It's the HD.
That Home Depot does wonders.
High def Home Depot, huge dick. Just kidding. It's like
software upgrades. Upgrades. All right. First talking point. You want to talk about Fabio first? You want to talk about Mark first?
First of all, you talk about the guy that won.
All right.
Homeboy won.
All right, we're going with Fabio first. Dennis.
Yep.
Dennis, take it away since you're the only one not wearing a Fabio shirt.
It's true. I was thinking about it, but I thought maybe you wanted some variety. I can go put it on if you want. I mean, like right now. I'll take this off.
Take this, stand up nice and slow, though, and do it sexy. Then take it off slow.
He's been cycling more too, probably getting a little cut. No, away from the homoeroticism of BrotoGP and straight to talking about sexy French men.
That is for me, that is not the title of Rob's sex tape. That is damn sure.
No, for me, it was nice to see a Fabio win because I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was last week. I asked you if you guys have been watching MotoGP's little 6-part mini feature on the SRT squad, which pretty much started from last season, chronicling the team and also Fabio and Franco's GP careers so far. So it was kind of nice for me because that series. It kind of built up for me, this Fabio win. I didn't think he was going to win, to be honest with you, at Jerez. I didn't think that, I thought that the first round of the season, everybody was going to be suffering from the long off season and then like the first round being right in the heat of Jerez. But I was still pleasantly surprised to see our French Fabio win, to be honest.
You know what I miss about Dennis recording with us, Rob, is accidentally correct titles of tracks.
What did I say? I don't even remember what I said. Andalusia?
He doesn't even. Oh my God, he's gonna. Yeah, the next weekend is the Andalusian GP, so you're gonna have to be on that one too. Yeah, they take the track name or the country name for the first one, and they take the region name for the second one. Someone else did that.
Kind of like
the series who shall not be named.
Got it.
I just said a series, and my phone thought I said, "Hey Siri."
Right.
Shut up, Siri.
Siri. God damn.
No, my final thought on well, not the final, but I just
his final thought. One more sentence and the episode's done.
That's it.
Bag him up.
I thought that Fabio was the only one that really kind of came prepared, considering everybody else was really just trying to salvage their race, during the race. I mean, if you think about the guys like Maverick and Dovizioso, even they were on the podium, I thought they just salvaged that result. Whereas, as far as a controlled race pace and race result, was Fabio, like the only one that had that.
So I'm not sure I agree that Fabio actually had it controlled. Like I agree that people were just trying to salvage something, like we've seen in pretty much every other motorsports series that has started up competition already, that the first round is a shit show just because the teams haven't been able to practice nearly as much as they'd like to. They're getting thrown into a track that isn't normally the first one that they go to. There's just a whole bunch of extra stuff that is making it difficult for them. And there were tons of mistakes, and I think there were tons of mistakes for everyone. It's just Fabio seemed to be the one that either made the least number of mistakes or just kind of got it right by Sunday.
I think as Remy has already pointed out, he was so prepared, in fact, that they didn't let him ride for 20 minutes. Dude was prepared.
I mean, in the first pre-practice, he actually didn't do he was very disappointed in his performance from
he was
FP1.
riding mad, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it wasn't a good look for Fabio. Of course, he was able to bring it back around by the second practice and went on to do this sort of weekend. I mean, I guess I I liked that Fabio did amazing at Jerez last year on the same bike and was able to kind of back it up at this track with his first win. But yeah, for me, it's just like everyone, it was a shit show for every single team and every single rider. And Fabio was just the one that made fewer mistakes than everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, but we all that I was surprised that he won and that Maverick got second. And I think Maverick's probably ruined that he went for the soft because he probably thinks he could have won if he went with the the harder front tire. But obviously, what was the story lead into this is that it's going to be hot. It's going to be a brutal July, like all of that stuff. And we've sort of typically seen that the Yamahas don't do that great when shit gets greasy, and to see them obviously manage and do so well in the conditions that everyone expected, and they all said who was prepared or not, but everyone expected this to be a difficult race. It was a talking point before it even started that this is obviously the whole season is going to be, every track is different from when you're used to being there, so your data isn't exactly as relevant than it would be, right? Which is even more surprising because what are they? They're the satellite team. They're still relatively a brand new team. But one of the things I really liked about this was like Petronas has shown, like, get a good an outside, not previously not in their sponsor, can really pick up a good team, and if they run it right and do well, like, you can be competitive. Like, you can see this potentially being really good for an outside, non-traditional sponsor for the Pramac team, or I'm pretty stoked that SRT won just from a bigger view of the sport, not just Fabio, which is awesome, right? Mm-hmm. First French rider to win a dry race since 1954. That's insane. First French rider to win any race since 1999. Right, that's so nutty. Like, he's only 21, right? That's
youngest pole, like, to beat Marquez last year, and then to follow it up with these extra results. Like, we've seen riders come in and be hot for a year and then kind of fall off, and it definitely seems like him and the team are gelling.
Zarko. Excuse me,
setting you up there. It definitely seems like him and the team are gelling to the point where they're still picking up speed, right? They're literally and they're still having better results, which is great. I mean, but it's we've talked about that before with GP, right? You come in with money, you can hire the best team, and that can support the rider that you have. And if you take a risk and you find a good one like Fabio is, or we now see that he is, things can work out really well.
Not that we now see, though, because if you go way back to when this all started, we made a top 5 of the riders to go on, and who did we pick in the middle? But we actually said Fabio, and people thought we were nuts.
We had
so many comments.
That video got like embedded on a like some other language website. I think it was a Japanese website or something, and it's one of our most watched random videos because
that's awesome.
Because it was someone else picked it up. Right. But no, you're right. We definitely took a risk in making that prediction, and it turns out that we were correct.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? Mm-hmm. With the heat and even Maverick's front tire, like, racing in those sort of conditions is definitely brutal. I mean, it was, what do they say? It was 32 Celsius. What is that? Low 90s air temp, and then track temp was 52 Fahrenheit, which is like 52 Celsius, which is like 127 Fahrenheit. Like, all that heat coming off the racetrack. Like, here in California, we kind of deal with track days like that every now and again. In Southern California, we got Chuckwalla, which is in the middle of the desert, and you can go there in February and get those temps. And then up north, where Dennis rides, is Thunder Hill, and
right,
and that's it's not uncommon. Yeah,
right.
And
Buttonwillow can be gnarly hot too.
Yeah, actually, the previous weekend, some of my buddies were there, and yeah, it was pretty much that, like 90 Fahrenheit air temp and 130 track temp, and like, to do a track day session where you like really take the 20-minute session and kind of pare it down to 15, you come off that thing exhausted, then you get a 40-minute break. Like, these guys are out there for 45 minutes racing as fast as they possibly can. Like, I'm not surprised that there were so many mistakes throughout the weekend, that there were so many mistakes during the race, that even someone like Mark encountered, like, made small mistakes that cost him big. Like, and the machines, like Rossi had a mechanical and pulled off. Like, people made weird tire choices. Jack Miller reported that he had arm pump and could barely finish the race. Like, Petrucci was still dealing with his neck injury and issues, and like there was. It just, all of that, plus the fact that this was the first real round for GP, and it was after this entire pandemic and the teams haven't been able to practice. To me, it was the perfect storm for something crazy to happen. And that's exactly what happened. Like, there is no way that I would have guessed a normal, like, Qatar round that Mark would have made 2 mistakes and injured himself. Like, it's bonkers to me. Yeah. The only thing that actually seems normal from this entire round is that Fabio won because he had great results here last year, and he kind of showed it throughout the entirety of practice. It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
On that note, like, before the race even started, when I saw the graphic that Maverick, chose the soft front, I was like, what the, what are you thinking? Like, I don't understand this. So
Rossi did too. And went nowhere with it.
Exactly. So I think if I had to pick, like, if I had, like, ride of the days, I would put, like, Maverick as my second or third ride of the day, just because of how risky that gamble was. I just want to state for the record, because you mentioned that Jack Miller might have had arm pump, because I just read this before we started. It wasn't actually arm pump. It was more like on the right corners, he would put his hand right where the brake lever protector was, and somehow that was causing his hand to go numb. Just on right corners,
not pump, just
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're gonna work on that for this weekend, however that's gonna be.
I'm still absolutely shocked that any of these racers can finish the race near the podium and go, oh yeah, I could barely hold on to the bars.
Right?
Like,
it's crazy.
What the hell are you talking about?
I rarely actually believe them for that. That's cognitive dissonance to explain why he got fourth and didn't beat Dovi. That's cognitive dissonance to explain. They put that out there because anyone that's in MotoGP basically has felt unbeatable their entire life, and warranted, right? Like there's a certain almost like sadistic self-belief that you are the absolute best in the world at this thing that millions of people do. You are the best. And the nature of the sport, with how it's stratified with machinery and sponsor, like, gives you that like a built-in excuse. And then you start to get to places where, like, sometimes I think that they just put that out there to be, instead of being like, hey, that was the best I had. Fourth was the best I had. You don't hear that much unless they're on the podium. Well, but what they do is they're like quantifying that, because the thing about that is everyone knows that Ducati seat's up for grabs.
Well, and it's funny that you bring up unless they're on the podium, because that's kind of what Dovi said, right? Like, this podium feels like a win, and then you go one step down and you get Jack, and he's like, no, I
couldn't even feel my hand, man. I couldn't even do it. When this race was done, I went into the thing and I had to give myself the old stranger because the right hand wasn't working. You know what I mean?
I mean, for these pro athletes, right? For Jack, it was probably like, my hand is 5% more numb than it should be at the end of the race, and that is it's done. It's it. But that's also the kind of margins that we're talking about here, right? Like, if Mark was 2 inches a little bit wider, maybe off the paint of that corner, you know,
if he was only 2 inches wider.
Someone's asking in the chat, would Fabio still have won on the factory Yamaha? Do you think that Petronas is playing such a huge role in that he wouldn't have if on the factory Yamaha?
For me, I mean, yeah, I think so, because I think the difference between, we saw it, right? We saw it straight up. Fabio on Petronas and Maverick on the factory. Maverick the only difference between the soft tire and was right there. I mean, he obviously wasn't fighting Fabio for the win, but he got second on what most people considered a crazy gamble. And he was limping that thing towards the end. Yeah, but he was competitive and equivalent. The two bikes were competitive and equivalent to each other, the only difference being one was on the front tire. So I think, yes, factory Yamaha, he still wins, because the factory Yamaha got second with a worse tire situation.
And there's one thing too, like, what am I trying to say here about that front tire? Nah, never mind. Where do we want to go here where do we want to go from here with Fabio? Like,
I mean,
how is he doing this next weekend, up and coming? Since we're
I
so
think
good at predictions.
I mean, I don't think the kid's lacking in confidence, but when you get that huge monkey off your back, like the first win, I mean that there's even more confidence now. Now he knows he can do it. Now the pressure
look
is
what
off.
happened when Dovi got that first Ducati win at the end of 2016, right? In the year when they all got 9, he wins a Sepang, and the next year, boom, he's just rattling off wins like
And
crazy.
even Maverick before the Yamaha was started, right? Like his first few races on the M1. I mean, it was just like win after win after win. Okay, a mistake
Right.
here, but then right back to winning again. So
Mhm.
when you get that huge first monkey win off your back, I mean, you could
Yeah, and
could
there's
jump higher.
more to that too. I got this first win. I beat the factory squad heads up, and I was doing so well that, and this goes back to kind of like Mark made multiple mistakes to hang with me to the point where he was so desperately trying to beat me that he made mistakes and crashed, right? Like, when reality is it should be everyone else desperately trying to beat Mark and hold a candle to him and hang with him. And it's crazy how the paradigm shifted so quick.
Just like that.
Oh,
Right.
what?
The whole sport is, I talked to Kyle Wyman the other day, this whole sport is just, what have you done for me lately? And that was this race
Especially
really
this year.
this race highlighted it. I think Rob wasn't the only one that said it. You saw this as one of the talking points that bounced around for a lot of fans, was this was kind of a changing of the guard race. Not with Mark. Obviously, Mark did what Mark does, which is crash, rides a crazy ass race, got bit again, but like, he's definitely made like a mistake and then just made it act like it never mattered before. But you saw like the old guard sans Dovey is struggling right now.
Yeah, so let's jump into that, because I think we assume that people read our personal chat on that one. So yeah, a couple days ago, or not a couple days ago, yesterday after the race, I pretty much have the opinion now that this race for me was the turning point of the old guys are done, are washed up, and the young kids are now coming there. Like, obviously we've already had Jack Miller and Rins and Fabio and Mav and stuff come in and get amazing results, but this was the time where Rossi, Dovey, Cal, the old guys are like, Dovey did get his best result at this track, but all the other guys were nowhere to be seen. Cal has now Cal crashed a warm up and broke his scaphoid and is getting a pin in it tomorrow. Rossi had a mechanical, and even before that was absolutely nowhere. Like Dovey, I mean, Dovey rode a very smart race, but he wasn't in control of this in any way, shape, or form, and he probably won't be this following weekend. So for me, it's just finally like something clicked in my mind of like, GP is no longer Rossi's game. GP is now Fabio and Vinales and Mark and everyone else. And obviously it's been Mark's game for years.
Right.
But I don't know. What do you? I mean,
but it was like Mark was the harbinger of it. But there's so many other things, because people, and Pecco obviously was doing well. Jack Miller's doing well. And Jack Miller's been in the series for a number of years now, but like, a huge part of that first part doesn't even count, right? Like, no one who rode the production Honda should even count that. You know, like that, you didn't ride MotoGP. You rode like a weird World Superbike, you know. But yeah, I mean, for me, like, seeing and like Cal dropping down, and it's like those guys are looking old. They have that feel to them. Like, you look at Fabio, like how young and like vigorous he is. Like, same thing with like Pecco and Jack. Like, you feel like these are like young, crazy motorcycle riders again. I was having this conversation on Twitter about how like sometimes I wonder how Dovey isn't everyone's favorite rider, because he's like the most relatable guy on the grid. He's just the guy who just got to he's like everyone's dad. He just fucking puts his head down, doesn't say shit, and gets results because hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. We talked about last episode, but like, I have a feeling like so much of the series feels young again. Like, you know what I mean? Like the feel of the series feels like young, exuberant. It feels like full of youthful energy.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I've been waiting for this kind of new era, so to speak. You know, I've always said that I'm not a Rossi fan per se, but he is the greatest of all time, and nothing can change that in my opinion. However, I've had enough of that, and for about 2 or 3 seasons now, I've been kind of excited for what MotoGP is going to look like. What's the new norm going to be? And I think actually I think Mark did kind of have a lot of hand in that, because he forced the evolution of the riders and the competitors into these, you know, the young guns that we have now. And I think it's kind of funny, like a guy like Vinales to me is almost like not even one of the new guys. He's kind of crossing over to that threshold of veteran, But I mean, I'm not saying he's old. No, but I mean, he's been what, like 4 seasons, 5 seasons? I can't even remember, right? But yeah, I'm excited for the new talent. Like even when I was watching the race, I was like, wow, like Binder, considering the mistakes that he made, was still riding very, very, very well, as a rookie. So I'm excited for the new guards now.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mark not only forced the other riders to kind of step up and take chances, but also the factories and the teams and everyone a part of GP had forced them to do something. Like the only ones that weren't forced into doing anything risky were Dorna and them shoving the T1000 down our throats the entire time.
Yeah, and like Fabio is the payoff of that, right? Like he's the first. Like someone posted in the chat a few minutes ago. Like what's crazy is like no Moto3 wins. One Moto2 win, 2, but they took 1 away because of technical infraction. Like, and yet here's this kid who just explodes onto the screen. Like, it was a huge gamble to take this guy and put him on this bike, right? Everyone's saying like, why does he deserve this and all of that stuff?
He was supposed to be the number 2 rider to Franco.
Right, and correct.
That didn't last very long.
That lasted not long at all. Title of Rob Sex Tape. And
damn it.
Yeah, and what's crazy is they've been looking for this silver bullet for a while, and then they finally found it. But the end result of looking for that silver bullet is like Joan Mir being on the factory squad, stuff like that. You just see like the youthfulness of the. He's only 21 years old. That kid, you know what I mean? Like he's so young. Like it's funny too because you saw like Maverick and Fabio, and then like Dovey is in the thing, and he's like their stepdad. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing about the entire weekend too for me. All the rookies seem to have rookies or very young riders seem to have standout performances, right? Jack was up until the race was the best Ducati pretty much the entire weekend. Like Iker Lecuona had some surprises. Brad Binder, like Dennis already brought up, the young guys were doing all that stuff, and everyone that's been around for 4 or 5 seasons has just been like, eh. Like Petrucci was absolutely nowhere, and sure he's in, and same with Cal. Like they both are dealing with injuries now, but it's still just not notable things. It got to surprise me at least a little bit. Whereas I'm not getting that from the old guys. I'm getting
Rob needs to get surprised. Every once in a while, you just got to take the pinky and tickle in the back. You got to. I mean, it's not that he wants the whole thing. He just wants you to know. He wants to know that you're thinking about ways to spice it up.
I knew you were gonna say something like
It's not that he likes it, guys. It's that he likes the thought that you want to keep it fresh, that you want to keep it spicy.
Anticipation is half the
That's
excitement.
half the thing.
And I do want to reiterate that speaking of the new guys, Iker Lecuona, I'm going to be keeping an eye on that kid. Mainly because it's good to finally see my number back on the grid. My favorite rider's number back on the grid. Also, that color scheme, especially with a dash of silver.
So good.
Sweet. So
yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Didn't you put him on like your fantasy team or something, Dennis? Or your video game team? Was that what that was? I missed that entire Iker Lecuona chat because I was ignoring you guys because I hadn't watched the race yet.
I don't know. Okay. I was just fanboying just because he was doing pretty good in pre-practices, and he's rocking my number and that sweet color scheme. That's all I really care about in my MotoGP races, yo.
Okay, perfect. Kyle Newman brings up a very interesting point. Speaking of the new guys, Alex Marquez, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, the best Marquez brother right now, that's for sure. He's in terms of the Marquez brothers, he got the most points so far in 2020.
Wait, did he score points? No,
I don't know.
Joking.
Yeah, he finished 11th, I think. 11th or
4th? And he's ahead of Rossi.
Listen, I've got 2 bets going on this season, and one of them involves Alex Marquez. My friend / coworker bets me that Binder is going to finish ahead of Alex Marquez in the points championship.
Oh yeah.
You think so?
Wait. So
yeah, that's stone cold.
Which one do you have?
I mean, that's your shoe-in of the week.
Well, she chose Binder, so I had to choose Alex Marquez is going to finish ahead of Binder.
You're gonna lose.
You're gonna lose so hard, dog.
$10. Damn it.
$10 dues.
Wow. Not even hobo dollars.
Well,
Real
I've got
actual
$100 in the same guy that lost to me last season. Fabio versus Maverick, who's going to finish ahead at the end of the season. So that's $100 right there. And then I've got $10 on Bender and Alex Marquez.
So who'd you take in the Fabio
You are
bet?
an animal, Dennis. You are a fucking animal.
That was her idea. That was her idea, not mine. She can't afford. I said whoever loses pays for next season's video pass, she won't have it. It's too much money for her.
People are telling you just to hand the 10 over right now. Just give up. Just give up.
Just for the record, I'm sticking with Maverick for my bet this season.
That I'd say that is a safer bet.
I think I would bet Maverick too.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Go on with the next topic.
Tough one though. Tough one. Well, let's do we want to talk about Maverick a little bit more? Does he make the same mistake, like same tactical error at the second round? Or
no, because
yeah, go ahead.
People only do those crazy tire choices when they think they got nothing. Right? They only do that when they think they're so out of it they gotta take a gamble. They're so out of it they gotta swing for the fences. He knows he's not out of it now. Like the Yamaha was good there. Fabio won. He got second. He has confidence because he was able to get second while limping at home, and he doesn't have to deal with. He probably doesn't have to deal with Marquez either this round. I mean, that's a little bit of pressure off of him. From that point of view, because I still think Maverick goes into each season thinking he's fighting for the title. That's his goal. Like I don't think Fabio's thinking that. He was just thinking I gotta get a win, I gotta get podiums. But Maverick went into 2020 thinking I'm fighting for the title. So actually, for me, I think that he feels good.
We could check out the press conference and see where they listed each other in the title for the end of the year. They did that.
They all listed themselves, except for Valentino
and Jack. Jack
and
didn't put
Jack.
Yeah. On the top. Yeah. Oh, the thing that I wanted to bring up about the tires that I forgot before, that new Michelin rear tire that seems to offer better edge grip, I think is contributing to the Yamaha not doing so bad in hot conditions. Right? Like the conditions were hot, but Jerez is I'm pretty sure it's old pavement. They were running the soft rear tire. Everyone was on the soft rear tire. Even the motorcycles and the heavier riders that are more difficult on the rear tire still were running the soft in hot conditions because, I mean, hell, when you got enough track temperature, those soft rear tires feel amazing.
But I think because of the improved edge grip is why Mav chose the soft over the hard. So I think he could have made either one work, whereas the hard would have given more stability in the braking. It didn't have the edge grip, which you absolutely need in a ref. So he just opted for... Yeah, he opted for the soft because he knew he could exploit the edge grip. So as far as this coming around, well, first of all, that kind of depends on what the climate or temperatures are going to be. But would he run the hard or the medium? That kind of depends on if they could make either one of those front tire work for him for the race, in my opinion.
Well, I think they seem to rule out the medium entirely because apparently Michelin isn't making large enough steps between the front tires for the medium to ever matter. Like if you either do soft or hard because the medium is kind of just stuck in the middle and the gap isn't big enough to make a difference.
Yeah.
As far as, I agree with you there running the hard. That running the hard might be a risk as well because of the edge grip stuff. And also we have to remember last year, and well, actually not just last year, but Mav has classically had a problem with the first couple of laps in races, right? And potentially that soft tire would give him that extra little bit of grip early on that would help him stay in the front group. I mean, thankfully he didn't botch the start. He had a good first couple of laps and he stayed in those positions early on. Like Mav would have won so many more races in his career if he'd accomplished those two things in the first quarter of a lap.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that if Mav was super fast at the beginning, got a really good start, and was super fast at the end, that he would win?
It was more funny because Kev is like delayed on my end for that one too. Yes, that is what I'm saying. If Maverick was the fastest over the entire race, he would have won more races.
Okay, John Madden. I think what happens is, Dennis, is who scores the most points this season is definitely going to win the championship.
When you break it down like that.
Right. In like 4 minutes, guys, Rob's going to be like, yo, The key is get on the gas quicker than everyone else and then brake later and gas earlier. That's how you get faster.
I was just told that like last week. I gotta try that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move
Way
on.
back in the day, I had a friend literally tell me
Yeah.
that. Get on the brake later, gas earlier, dude. What's the problem?
That's how you go fast on a motorcycle. It's great. Yeah.
Right. That's how you go fast on a motorcycle. Right. We just like if you're like Mark Marquez, right? Just brake later, gas earlier, or brake later, gas sooner, and don't care if you slide around.
It tells you absolutely nothing about actually how to do it. It just tells you what you need to do. It's perfect,
Right. That's
perfect coaching technique.
Figure it out yourself, but that's what you want to do. This is your goal. That's called the ecological model of learning. You tell them the end goal, but don't tell them how to do it, and they develop the patterns and the set how to do it themselves.
I think as far as motorcycle racing go, that's probably the worst way to teach someone how to ride a motorcycle.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely. I mean, it's all fun and games till you break your humerus, and then it's no laughing matter.
Is it humorous after that?
Dennis, you got to go with this. Most of you guys
dad
don't know,
jokes galore.
but most of our side BrotoGP chat is essentially me or trying to get Dennis to tell me dad jokes, or me to be like, "Yo, here's this dad joke,"
Whether I approve or not.
whether he approves or not. Right? Exactly.
Dennis is quite particular about his dad jokes. That's why I don't think he jumped on that one, Kev.
I know. What the fuck?
I don't know.
My dad jokes are best live. Sorry. You gotta see it, hear it, feel it, smell it.
We are live.
What a coincidence! We happen to be live on YouTube right now.
All right. So here's my hypothesis about Mark, about his entire weekend, and why I actually don't see his like battle back through the pack as like, oh my God, Mark is amazing, yada, yada, yada. I see a chink in the armor, but not really his armor. I think this is HRC's problem. I think that the motorcycle this year that he's riding is requiring more lean angle for every damn turn. I think it just doesn't turn as well as it did in previous seasons. Because of that, he's having to take more risk, right? Like Mark has always, run like 63 degrees of lean angle, which is ridiculous.
Insane.
And yeah, absolutely insane. And
he runs a whole Jack Miller of lean angle.
A whole Jack Miller. If he has to go just a little bit farther for a couple extra corners on the racetrack, he's taking more risk. He's taking too much. That extra edge grip on the new Michelin rear tire is allowing him to do that for a little bit, but it's pushing the front a little hard. I think we're going to see more of these front end slides out of him all season long, and they're going to be a hindrance to the entire championship. So, I mean, we're not going to see him at the,
First of all, it's not a hindrance to the championship. It's a hindrance to his championship. But the championship, this is the dopest. I mean, let me backtrack. It's not awesome that it happened because, like, I talk a lot of shit, and I'm going to talk a lot of shit in, like, T-4 minutes. I'm going to fucking go ape shit. But to be real for a second, to get real with you, like, he's still a person, and he has had to be in so much pain, and it's just so bad that bike hit him right in the side of the fucking arm, and then it was just Gumby had like 3 elbows and all. Oh God, like I feel really bad. That had to hurt so bad.
3
and
elbows.
It's more than just it was a running joke, right? Because he had like more than one elbow, right? Because he's got so many breaks in his arm. But there's some pretty gnarly pictures of like if you screenshots of the video, right, where he's rolling and you're like, holy fuck, like his arm is broken so bad. And for those of you who don't know, one of the big problems with breaking your humerus and worrisome is that there's some very important nerves, specifically your radial nerve and a couple other ones. I'm sure Rob, while I'm talking, can pull up like an image or something like that of it if you wanted, but that travel down your arm that spiral around the humerus bone, and right where his break kind of looks to happen is where this stuff's essentially located. And as someone who's dealt with nerve injuries, and I had like a lot of talks with people online about this and messages on Instagram and stuff, like nerve injuries take so long to heal. It's amazing. I injured a nerve in my neck in 2018, and I'm only now feeling normal.
after significant PT, self PT.
And I'm not like, and I'm like a relatively healthy guy. I'm like this, I have a resting heart rate of like 50, and I still wear the same pants I wear in high school. You know what I mean? Like I during quarantine, I run 5 miles a day every single day since March 16th when it started. Like, no question. Like, I'm not like the fittest guy ever, but I don't have pre-existing health conditions that would slow it down. So that like with slow healing down, it takes so long to heal. And it's not just that you could damage the nerves outer casing specifically, what I did can get stretched. So if you stretch the nerve, the casing it runs through and it becomes super predisposed to being like re-injured. In my case, my head got like, I did a reverse scorpion, right? Like the running joke, right? You land and scorpion yourself and your feet hit the back of your head. I did the reverse. My head, when everyone said that Marilyn Manson had his ribs removed so he could suck his own dick. Well, my ribs weren't removed and I could still do that. That's how far my head went down. And it totally stretched the Duma, which is the nerve casing in my neck. Anyway, we're getting way off the subject.
Bring it back around.
I'm just saying. Like we talking about Marilyn Manson getting his ribs removed? Come on, there's people in the chat. They're going to get that reference. But nerve injuries are no joke. But I definitely am shortly going to explode on this whole Marquez run, how it was covered, what they say, and the talking points of it, because it's all total horseshit.
Oh yeah, before we get there, I definitely I still want to keep going on this. That we're going to see this more this year.
Post an eggplant if you get my Marilyn Manson reference.
Someone apparently YouTube doesn't like the word fellatio.
I see someone already knew.
Autofellatio is off topic? Question mark?
Yeah, that is the most on brand.
It just when I was
people are so smart that instead of posting the eggplant emoji so that Rob would have to approve it, they're just writing eggplant. Damn, people are clever. People are straight up clever.
Oh god, so many approvals.
It's like reading Playboy for the articles.
Right, exactly.
All right, back on topic here. I lost my train of thought. No, so just watching.
It's cute that Rob thinks talking about eggplant emojis is off topic.
Yeah,
we've been doing this for 5 years.
watching Mark tip into corners in qualifying and when he's essentially anytime he was right behind or right in front of someone else, it really seemed like he's throwing it into the corners significantly faster than everyone else, even though we know classically he should be braking harder than everyone else, right? So when you're braking very hard, you generally can't add that much lean angle for fear of tucking the front end because you can't change the loading like that significantly fast. He's been able to do it, and he can post amazing lap times because of it. But I do think that extra speed of throwing the bike in and the extra lean angle that he's probably getting out of it is going to be more risky for him throughout the entire season. And I mean, I don't know if it's something that HRC, if it does exist, I'm sure they know about it. Whether or not they're going to adjust their entire outlook for the season, adjust the chassis, adjust his riding style, adjust the electronics to reduce that, because they can kind of blame these two incidents on that. That remains to be seen, right? He may just go back to being the same old Marc Marquez that learns from his mistakes and just doesn't make this mistake ever again. Yeah. So it could be all up to the rider once again. Like someone, I think it was Mike Falcone up in the chat a little while ago said that Mark didn't want a bike that was easy to ride. He wanted the fastest bike, and he may have that still.
Right. Yeah. What has the fastest potential? Exactly. The easiest bike to ride is great. Like if you're the Ducati, right, you get a lot of people to ride it. But what is the bike that has the fastest potential, no matter what? If you want to get that last 1% to go from 99 to 100, who's the biggest jump? Who has the biggest jump? That I still obviously it's still the Honda. It's probably the hardest bike to ride on the grid, but it has the most potential to bring out if you ride it hard.
I think the best bike on the grid right now is the Suzuki, actually, even though their results Even though
I mean,
categorically
right.
the
I mean,
results say
even
otherwise.
though both guys crashed and one
No, I mean,
tried, also one like that's the best part. It sucks to be Alex Rins, right? Like you crash, you dislocate your shoulder and break your shoulder, and you're not even like the injury talk. You don't get any sympathy. He's
No-
probably in the
no
other.
pledge.
He's probably like 3 rooms down from Mark Marquez, and there's a mountain of get well soon cards and flowers and all the journalists trying to get in to sneak pictures of the X-rays, sneak pictures of any MRI to get checked nerve damage or soft tissue damage, and he's just down there like, oh.
So Alex Rins is basically Black Widow in Endgame, right? Everybody cares about Tony dying.
Right, exactly.
No,
right.
No, Rob, I wasn't.
forgot about that.
I wasn't disagreeing with you, Rob, when I kind of sighed there. I was just really disappointed for Suzuki this weekend because I was excited for their pace and pre-practice, what they were showing, both their riders at that. So
Yeah.
I'm so happy for Suzuki finally to have this kind of steady growth, steady progress, and then bad luck.
Well, it's not bad luck. Like,
Agreed on
so
that part.
I'm going to jump in here. It's not bad luck. First of all, the talking point of the whole race weekend was literally the temperatures are crazy. It's going to be a war of attrition. It's going to be way harder to ride than anyone expects. But like, again, I'm just some dumb shit. But like I've talked about, like I participate in other sports. So when it's been 8 months since they raced. You cannot just your central nervous system carries load. Like how much load your central nervous system can take is a real thing. When we got back to jiu-jitsu and grappling and wrestling and judo in some of like our secret sessions, the first thing one of my coaches, who's just like a genius on things, said was, if you do not spar hard, I won't let you spar hard more than twice a week for the first couple weeks, because they're all physically fit as fuck. They've all been riding bikes, staying fit, working out, doing everything to give some monochrome of doing something this season. But what they haven't done is loaded their central nervous system in any appreciable manner. And when you haven't loaded your central nervous system in true competition orientation or true really hard testing regularly, you're gonna make mistakes because you're not thinking as clear. I know this, and I'm literally just some dipshit who only knows stuff because I just like to buy textbooks and read them for the sake of it. But there's people here whose entire jobs and livelihoods are based off knowing this. These guys have rider coaches, and these guys had literally no one here should have been riding. No one should have been riding as hard as Mark was riding. In fact, all those guys that finished 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, actually, as much as they wanted to fucking jizz all over themselves and cover themselves in Randy Marsh ectoplasm about how great his ride was, it was the dumbest thing he could have done, because they haven't raced in 8 months. The amount of time that he has not loaded his central nervous system with like pure stress is way longer than usual, with a hard reduction in testing ahead of time and all the stuff that goes to this. And you jump right into this. It's nutty that he made the same mistake twice. It's so stupid. It's so stupid that he did that. And I don't care what anyone says about all that. Obviously, he's one of the greatest riders, if not the greatest rider of all time. But all of that mattered when things were normal, and it's not normal in any way. And like I said on the last podcast, the person who willfully accepts the way the world is now and attempts to thrive within it and sees it as a fun challenge to take on as opposed to an obstacle to get around is going to win.
I mean, you're just saying the thing that racers have been saying for the longest time, right? There's absolutely no replacement for actually racing the motorcycle.
Correct.
Wait a minute.
Right?
But
was Kevin talking about Marquez?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Rins.
No.
Actually,
I'm talking about the Paddock as a whole. I am talking about Rins,
right.
and
Okay.
I'm talking about Cal, and I'm talking about Marquez. I'm talking about how these guys were like, the fact that we have 3 guys going into surgery on Tuesday, 3 dudes, 2 factories, and 1 on a de facto factory bike is crazy. Now, I was using Marquez as like the tip of my point, but it applies to Rins, it applies to Cal, it applies to everyone. That's why I said these guys that were getting just get the race finished and get it out of the way. You can't win the championship the first race, but I mean, ask Maverick, right? he won a lot of races at the beginning of 2017, and he didn't win shit at the end, but you can definitely lose it. And the idea that these guys didn't get sat down and talked and said, like, this is like Fabio and Maverick's races were actually super boring, which is the smartest way you could have rode this race. Super boring.
Rins is actually probably the best justification for everything you just said, because what were his two crashes? Someone else, in qualifying, right? He crashed in qualifying. Someone else crashed in front of him.
Miller.
He was distracted. And
target fixation.
Well,
that's some C group shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it happens in the MotoGP paddock, and but it happens more in Moto2, and it probably happens even more in Moto3, and it happens way more at club racing, and it happens way more at C group track days, right? That's one of the first things that you try and train your nervous system out of when you're actually racing a motorcycle is just take the line. Don't target fixate. Don't pay attention to those other guys. Like, thankfully, one of Rins' crashes was innocuous, right? It honestly looked like he just fell over. But the second one was injury, and he's now going to miss races because of it.
And he was factored in as a potential championship winner, right? He had multiple wins. He was coming on strong. Like you said, the Suzuki was considered an amazing bike, potentially one of the best bikes on the grid, if not the best bike on the grid. Everything was lined up for these guys on a normal year, on a normal Qatar, on a normal Jerez.
Well, but now they get to Jerez, right? A track where it's normally like the fourth round of the season these days, and where they are like, oh, we're going back to Europe. Like, we're finally out of the craziness of the early flyaways, and we can get back to regular, like, business as usual. And I can go hard because I've been on this track a million times. And they're presented with this round. This is not the round that they could have gone hard.
They don't just do the flyaways, Qatar, Argentina, America as the first three races because Qatar uses slave labor and oil money to purchase everything out to normalize their existence when they really shouldn't exist at all. And it's a fucking nightmare of a country.
Okay.
All right. They use these three races because it ain't no one's home race. No one has home jitters. No one has the hometown pressures of I got to win this because this series is so nationalized. You've got to win in your home country, right? There's so much added pressure. There's so much added when you're at a track. Like, look at what happens with the guys when they go to Mugello, right? Like Valentino said, like, the only thing like better than winning Mugello is winning the championship, even though Mugello is just a race. It's just one race, right? These guys are racing at home because this whole series is hyper nationalized and people represent their whole countries, represent their whole regions. These guys used a home race with all the pressures in the world as their opener. Like, there's a reason in college football when you literally go beat up some Division III team when you're a NCAA Division I team, because you just want to get that out. You want to get on the board. You want to get rolling. You want to get going. You don't have your homecoming as your first game, right? And even when you do have, yes, that's the same reason when if you haven't had a girlfriend in a while or you haven't had a boyfriend in a while, you get a slump buster. You get someone way below the status that you're at, and you just pound it out. You got to do what you got to do to get back in the game.
Thank you. Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah, there you go. Right, exactly. Right. So, like that. And so what they did, and they came literally. This, it's like the running joke is it's the Spanish GP series, right? It's that you have these guys that have so much weight on their shoulders from the nationalistic point of view of this series, and you have it as your opener. They treated this as a normal race, which was the worst thing you could have done. Nothing about any race here is normal. And the rider who embraces that is who's going to win.
There may be some normalcy in this coming weekend solely because they've already been to this racetrack, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, right. Speaking of other series that have already had their starts, that very, very first round. I mean, it's never more anomalous than anything else. Exactly. But these are pros. They're the best at what they do. So once they finally get that, done and dusted, then they're going to go back into the right mode. That's also my opinion.
Hold on, though. Something that won't be normal. Mark won't be there.
Well, yeah.
So there'll be added pressure for the guys that we're close to or we're on the podium for like, all right, there's another spot on the podium up there. So let's push for that one.
Right. Guys who the guys who are thinking I'm looking for just a top 5 are now thinking, shit, I got a podium in sight. Valentino's nowhere to be found. Petrucci's nowhere to be found. Marquez is gone. Literally the other Repsol Honda is Alex Marquez, which was a signing so preposterous that they demoted him before the race ever started to the LCR team. There's no Cal, who was over the last few years been a pretty solid top 5 rider, sneaking, podiums here and there, and a few years ago getting a couple regular wins. Like, it's up in the air right now. And no Coda, a Honda track, no Mugello, which was the original Ducati track. Like, those Yamaha riders are chomping at the bit right now.
All right, so there are 2 questions that came up in the chat over here. What's Mark's expected recovery time? Do you think that nerve damage is?
That's everything. That's
but do you think it actually occurred? Because the report was still kind of inconclusive on whether or not that was going to be an effect.
He
until
gets
they actually
surgery Tuesday, so he's for us now, he's close to getting it, if not already getting it. Depending on their surgery, no one will know till they get in there and see. And that's what's going to say everything. Just a broken bone. I haven't seen the x-rays. Is it a clean break? How gnarly is the break? Just a broken bone. I shared some information from John Hopkins Medical regarding expected recovery time. In fact, they said you can literally start working your elbow the next day. So I studied this a little bit. So if it's a clean break, he can start muscular and like skeletal rehab the next day. Like, because that's the whole thing, right? This isn't the 70s. They don't just stick you in an immobilized cast for like 8 months. This isn't The Rookie, that sweet 90s baseball movie about the kid who could throw 8,000 miles an hour because his tendons healed tight. They know that you want to get them out of a cast and get it to start moving right away. The number one thing you do when it comes to that kind of damage, that's threefold. It's inflammation, rehabilitation, and then reorganization. So if you have major tissue damage, that's how it happens. The first thing your body does is it inflames itself to protect it, and then once the inflammation phase is down, it begins to rebuild it. You rebuild. So like nutrients, the rebuilding, and then you reorganize it, which is reorganizing the ability to use it once again. So we all know now that you actually want to get inflammation done as quick as possible, and the best way to get it to send nutrients to have your body actually rebuild it is to move it, send blood flow to it, and get it moving. And that we want to shorten those times. You want to shorten inflammation as small as possible, and you want to bridge the gap to reorganization as quick as you can.
They want to know what the Rookie of the Year's name was. Was it Kevin? Someone's asking.
Dude, I can't remember. I'm so far gone on that rosé. The fact that I can remember like the phases of tissue rehabilitation is crazy.
Oh no, they got it. It's apparently Henry.
You go.
I was just pulling you off that topic. No, I mean Mark's injury. Because I know you can talk an hour on that thing. I know you can. We're gonna go back to motorcycle racing. But you're right. Like,
it's super relevant. It's talking about the injury to the guy and the reigning champion, potentially greatest of all times, return to the sport. What are you talking about?
I mean, so let's go to your point that you posted on social media about doctors being involved in the decision to put an athlete back in the sport, right? Like if Mark has the best possible surgery, right, and it was a clean break and he gets a rod through his humerus and there's no nerve damage, he's going to be racing at Jerez.
No, he'll be. I think they've already said they're aiming for Bruno now. Like, that's crazy. There's no way he'd be racing that quick. They can't even assess if he's had actual nerve damage, and yet. Like, until they get in there, see it, and then when he starts recuperating and they can see how does his finger work, how does his thumb work. If anyone's ever damaged that nerve line, what happens is these two things don't work. Super important for riding a motorcycle.
Especially on that
right
hand. Yep.
Especially on your right hand.
I mean, when I did the left forearm, it took 2 months for the hand strength to come back where I was comfortable on it. But that was also here, whereas he was much further.
Yeah, so the question, I mean, this is my big problem. And of course, I got killed for it because everyone thought I was actually talking shit about Marquez, which I wasn't, because it's not Marquez's job to know whether it's safe and responsible for him to ride. The job is inherently unsafe and inherently irresponsible.
And it should inherently not be his decision,
like,
because
despite the fact that
he's
he's making $25 million a year for 4 years, there's actually like better ways to make $25 million a year, right? Like, there's actually safer, more responsible ways to do it. Like, there's a lot more people making $25 million a year doing other things than racing motorcycles, because he's the only one who's ever done it. So, but the idea that, and people say, oh, the Clinica Mobile, like, they're so good. Yet no one's disputing the fact that they're good doctors. What we're disputing is that the promotion is in charge. The promoting organization is in charge of the medical organization, which is the worst thing. We had this a number of years ago. I can't remember exactly what it was, where the track doctor refused to let a rider ride who was cleared by the Clinica Mobile. You remember that? I can't remember who it was, but it was a huge controversy when it never should have been a controversy, because a track doctor should have ultimate authority because he has no vested interest in the game. If this was like most, as I said, every other sport, no one would even be talking about like, oh yeah, he'll be there next week. In UFC, you have automatic medical suspensions that you have to see a panel of doctors to lower right away. They hand out medical suspensions for people who win the next week. Literally, you fight on Saturday and medical suspensions come out Monday or Tuesday. Automatic medical suspensions. You get a concussion in the NFL nowadays with all the CTE information, and you do not get to go right back out, right? You have to go through a whole protocol. If you're teaching youth sports, I know this is professional sports, but this is all trickling up, and someone has concussion protocol. There's a whole test you have to do. You can't let them back out. Most sports nowadays have this stuff. The idea that and what's crazy is this sport is far more dangerous than any of those other sports named, even though combat sports is combat and football is effectively simulated war. Like, that's what American football is. It's simulated war down to like every little thing about it. Soldiers, pawns, sergeants, lieutenants, all the generals. It's literally simulated war.
I feel like most of those changes, right, to like bring in CTE scans and stuff in the NFL and all that came because something went terribly wrong, right? Like, so in MotoGP, right, they have the riders union that is supposed to be all about safety, right? And there have been changes over the past decade that have made things significantly safer for the riders. Right now, I mean, now airbags are mandated, right? And that Dorna has created a helmet spec that is actually safer than a lot of the ones that were allowed before that, right? There are a lot of things that are helping, but like, it seems like that last step of power of like some doctor just being able to say, yeah, you're good because I want to sell tickets, hasn't been taken away yet because something hasn't gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, you're good because Repsol spends $250 million every 5 years or whatever it is to do this, right? Yeah, you're good because our sport is a branding exercise. And if, like, look what happened when Valentino was doing terrible or got hurt. Remember the year he broke his leg at Mugello and like half the people didn't show up on Sunday when he got hurt in qualifying? Like, literally, Marquez not being there means, I actually think Marquez not being there is going to mean that more people watch, because it's not a foregone conclusion. But they think, and certainly the people who paid to have Marquez, I mean, Honda just broke the bank to get this dude, and Repsol just broke the bank to pay for this, and the number of personal sponsors he has that are paying top dollar to get on the lead MotoGP riders' gear, he's not going to be there. They want him there. There's too much money at stake. And that, of course, is the difference. You don't see NFL individual sponsors on the track. Tom Brady does not wear that stuff. Like, yeah, he's sponsored by UGG or whatever. He doesn't wear it. Yeah, Conor McGregor is sponsored by like August McGregor, and he has all these other fancy lines that he does, but he's not wearing it in the octagon. Same with baseball. So you don't have that level of like competing ideologies.
And Reebok is on the entire team, right?
Correct.
It's not just on one athlete.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, we're definitely talking shit here because we don't know how this stuff is going to go down, but it's an interesting perspective to kind of look at this. Like, I do hope that the stuff that went down with Cal, right? The reason why he didn't race on Sunday was not because they knew that he broke his wrist. It was actually because he bashed his head on the asphalt, and they were like, "Yeah, you kind of need a day." And he agreed with the decision, and he didn't race, right? So there are definitely good choices being made in terms of rider safety. It's just, if we see Mark out there on Friday,
It's because he's not Cal.
It's because he's not
Right.
Cal.
Correct.
I mean, Jorge at Assen, right? Like there are some very interesting decisions that have been made in the past that have worked out just fine.
Right. You know what else was a really interesting decision that happened in the past that worked out just fine? Running off the track at turn 3 and then passing everyone during the race in the sketchiest conditions possible. It all works out fine till it fucking doesn't, and then you have a broken humerus. It all works out fine, and they all slob the knob of how crazy this ride is, how he's the god, he's great. They spend the whole time talking about him, even though Dovi's never had a podium here, and he's in podium contention, even though Maverick has been starting like shit for 3 years, and suddenly he's running quick from the start, even though SRT is a Yamaha satellite team who's never won a race. A French guy hasn't won a race in 20 years, and SRT's never won a race in GP, and all they want to do is talk about how great it was. It was the worst I'd ever heard. In fact, I got told by Dennis and Remy, I've told you guys this, like, this is the craziest race. You have to watch. Dennis was like, I don't want to say a word. I'm speechless. All I want to do is talk about it. And like, look, he's here, right? Like the guy started BrotoGP and he like had me and Rob join him for his podcast. And like a year later, he's like, nah, I'm out. And we've just been carrying the water for him for 5 years. And Remy's like this and that. And the whole race, like, I know something crazy is going to happen because my friends have like, you know, given me the obvious, like something crazy is going to happen.
Yeah.
And the booth, who's in the booth right now has got to be the worst possible commentators possible. Not because of their speech, not because of the way they talk. They have great cadence. They're quick. They have good sounding voices. Simon Crafar is doing an incredible job. Like all this shit we talked about him before, like that's improved. All gone. He's really good. Much improved, and all the props to him. In fact, I kind of wish he was in the booth at this point, but all they could do was talk about Mark. All they could do was talk about how incredible this ride is, even though I'm like, nah, he's going to crash. Like, the reason he can do this is because you can't ride the bike this fast in these conditions. It's gonna happen. There's no doubt in my mind. When he crashed, I was not surprised. I'm like, well, yeah, that was obvious. I'm not even surprised. Now, later finding out he was injured was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, the implications are huge, and that's later what Remy had told me, like these implications. But the fucking coverage is too much. It's too much. I know it's a big giant branding exercise, and Repsol pays the most, and it's a Spanish rider on a Spanish team on a Spanish bike in Spain. But dude, it's too much. It ruins it for me. In fact, when I made the joke that I hadn't actually gotten the video pass, I wasn't joking. I purchased the video pass that morning because I was so over like how biased the coverage is. And then like I was just I'm sitting here literally in the exact space I'm in. This is what I look like when I'm watching MotoGP. I sit on this side of the couch and stare at my computer and watch it. The only difference is Buster sits right next to me and screams at me for treats, even though I just fed him. So he throws up all the food I gave him. So I have to give him more food because he's a straight Roman at this point. He's so decadent. And
how is he that big and puking all the time?
Because I have to refeed him. Yeah, and it's like the whole thing is fucking like, it's so bad. The coverage is too much. Yes, he's so good. The coverage is so blatantly one-sided that I can't stand it. It's so beyond the pall of like what's acceptable to me that we get a
weekend without it.
I'm more stoked because I just get a reprieve from it. I get a reprieve from the fucking, hey, did you know Marc Marquez is good? Hey, guys, Marc Marquez is really good.
I hadn't heard.
He's super good.
Tell me more. Yeah. Tell me more. No, I mean, yeah, it's a two-part problem, right? Because not only is it the commentators speaking about that, but a lot of their commentating is driven by what's on the feed at that time, and they're not controlling what camera is being shown. That's the guy in the booth. We don't know what nationality the guy in the booth is, but he definitely is all over Marc Marquez's nub. And I mean, honestly, the ride that he was doing was the majority of the time was probably the most exciting thing happening on the track because the front three weren't constantly going back and forth, you know. But there's other
storylines. There are
other storylines, but if they don't capture them on screen, how the hell are we going to know about them? And they need to be a little more democratic with who gets the camera time here.
They just need to split it up. It's not that hard. Every other sport does this. They show multiple camera angles. It's not that hard. Run the helicopter angle for a while and show a wider variety of the actual thing at one time. It's just like it's also possible. I'm not trying to say it. You can also say, hey, let me see what's going on. You can direct your boss a little bit. Like the people who actually succeed in life know how to manage their own boss as they rise through management and take care of it, or just become their own boss. You can kind of do that. I mean, what they need, and I hate to go back to my UFC comments, I just watched a lot, but there is a lot of parallels to it because what do they have? Joe Rogan is one of their main commentators. He doesn't work for them. He's an independent contractor. He can't he can say stuff that he does say some. Now, occasionally he toes the company line far too much, but there are times when he's like, no, that's not true. Like he'll just straight correct live on air and say stuff because he's so knowledgeable. They need
Simon's been doing that a few times.
They need Simon in the booth.
Well,
Simon needs to be paid by the FIM, not by Dorna.
They need that same guy in the other booth that controls the cameras, right? Because someone just brought up here that Binder had some crazy laps, but didn't see him on camera once.
Yep.
Right.
And
so
them
like
going nuts on Binder and constantly talking about Binder, even though he didn't have like the craziest result ever, has so many more storylines. How did KTM just get really good? Right, the tire they change the tire and suddenly KTM is fucking badass. And Pole was looking great. Binder's looking great. Like everyone joked that Binder and Oliveira threw their careers away going straight to KTM, and now KTM looks dope.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny to draw parallels between the Yamaha and the KTM, but that happened this weekend, right? KTM's terrible and can't use their horsepower in hot conditions, and KTM has terrible edge grip. They both get a new tire, and they both somehow are able to have quality results in hot conditions. That was weird. Weird. Two different bikes. We say all the time that the KTM is more comparable to the Honda and ridden like the Honda, and yet they both kind of got that same benefit. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, the world is crazy. Yeah, there are a lot of
Speaking of the world is crazy, one of the cool parts is when they get off the front straightaway and they would zoom out and show all the bikes, and then in gigantic, like, augmented reality, they would, like, superimpose, like, watch from home, cheer your heroes on from home. Like, anyone who's watching hasn't noticed there's a worldwide pandemic that has, like, 3/4 of the fucking world stuck at home all the time. They don't need to remind us that everyone's at home. As of today, 17% of wages in the United States are via unemployment insurance. Dog, we know there's a pandemic and we don't get to be there. We also know that it's kind of lame we don't get to be there. The constant reminding of it was like way too much too. Like, again, embrace it. Like, you don't have to have fans. There's never any fans at Qatar. And Qatar has had great racing. There's no fans there. There's like 17 camels.
They never show the one grandstand at Qatar because it's not full.
There's
anyway.
more slaves taking care of the people in the hotel in Qatar than there are actual fans attending the hotels in Qatar.
I shouldn't laugh. No. Moving on.
And if you think I'm going to keep talking about if you think I'm going to stop talking about slaves in Qatar, you got another thing coming.
You bring it up once an episode. Just do it every episode.
Okay, exactly. Right.
Completely unrelated. Mm-hmm. Drew, be careful about Simon's Moto Voodoo YouTube channel. His coaching techniques may not work out for many people. That's just
what does that 500 GP winner know?
Just helping out in the chat. He knows how to ride a motorcycle. That's for certain. Does he know how to tell people how to ride a motorcycle? I don't know.
That's a whole different ballgame. The ability to actually impart information is totally different.
Yep. All right, what else are we going to talk about with this race? I think that's all I got.
Me too. I mean, we got another one coming up real soon anyway, so.
Yeah. God damn. All right, everyone, real quick. If you got a question, I know you're like 7 seconds behind. Throw it into the chat. Throw it into the chat.
Right. We got a few seconds to get us some interesting questions in there, and I'll go. Kyle Carrington, but he just got here. You better ask a fucking good question then, dog. What do you want to know? P is obviously storing the balls, Jocko Plane. We've been going over this for 2 years now. pee being stored in the balls actually started in August of 2018. I
We're not
know
going to
the
talk
day
about
that it happened.
we're not going to talk about Tito coming in 14th, just
No.
like we're not going to talk about Joe Roberts getting 18th or something like that, because that's kind of how it is. What did you say earlier? Like this sport is all about what have you done for me lately?
Right, yeah, who
And
cares? He almost got a podium the other day, right? He
yeah.
almost got a podium 4 months ago. Who are we talking about?
Oh, actually, Kev, you brought up something earlier that we didn't touch on enough. Dovi's going to have the biggest contract
It's blown wide open.
negotiations. Yeah.
He's blown wide open. He actually legitimately can win the title this year, and I'm not even joking. He's not more talented than Marquez, but he
Nope.
is, again, he's better than everyone else on the grid. He's gotten second place 3 straight times, and he knows exactly what he's done. This is his moment, right? This is the moment that, like for 20 years, like, you had to be like a shredded, fit, muscular dude to be like cool in Hollywood. And then there was a moment when they're like, hey, dad bods are kind of interesting. And every dad stood up and like was like, oh fuck, this is my moment. This is the moment I get a fucking knobby from the wife after 10 years, right? Because dad bods were in. This is the moment when Dovi knows, like, this is it. He has everything in place. He knows how to win. He knows how to be the high-end point scoring over a season. It's all here. They've gotten rid of some of his bogey tracks, but some of his good tracks are still on the calendar. This dude, like, it's going to be, he could potentially, like,
Well,
this is life-changing for him. He got
rid of one of his own bogey tracks by getting a podium here at Jerez.
Right.
And he's got another one coming up. So there's a chance. But the backstory on this, if you don't know, Dovi has not yet agreed to his next contract with Ducati. They offered him what was rumored to be a massive pay cut, and he wants to tell him to shove it. So they're going to wait until August. And
if you're in the
yeah, go ahead.
If you're in the chat, what the guy said sabbatical is he's ready to take a year off, as opposed to be underpaid. Right. He's ready to, quote, take a sabbatical as opposed to being underpaid. He will only race. And I actually support him. Race what you think it's worth. Because if you're not getting paid what it's worth to potentially break your humerus, for example, or break your shoulder and dislocate it, or break your scaphoid, don't do it. Do it if you think that the risk is worth the reward.
And Dovi just came off an injury in the offseason.
Right. And suddenly it's blown out. Mark is injured. Who knows when he's back? Who knows when he's back to racing and fitness? He's getting podiums at his bogey tracks. Like, the whole thing has changed. This could be the most important year of his life.
Yeah, but
he could literally sign the biggest contract of his life, set his family up with generational wealth, and be a world champion in MotoGP. Both of those things could happen in 2020. And again,
Dennis,
in a year where everyone is dealing with the hardest time in their life, he's looking at potentially the greatest moment of his life.
Well, somebody in the chat brought this up, and I was going to say that I think Dovi needs to be a little bit careful what they hold out, because he's not just the fastest dad on the grid. We got Nagashima in Moto 2. He's a dad of 2, and he's probably younger.
I heard 3.
Okay.
3.
Well, see, there you go. All right, so already a winner last round in Qatar. I think a second place this round. So
yep.
He ain't just the only fastest dad on the grid.
Well, just to round out Dovi, I think Dovi needs to push his contract negotiations back to the end of August so that he can get those 2 Austria rounds in there before signing. But so someone also asked if Nagashima is gonna be the next rider in GP. I'd say he's probably second behind Valentino Rossi's little brother, behind Luca Ramini. Just simply because, like, I don't know. Like, unless Honda has a spot open for him, which they might if they get rid of their Japanese rider at LCR. Why is his name escaping me?
Taka.
But either way, Taka. Yes. If they get rid of Taka, they'll replace him with Nagashima. Absolutely. For 100% certain. But if they don't, and they still keep Taka, and now Alex Marquez is at that team, like, there's nowhere else for him to go. And I don't think the other factories don't really go oh, we definitely want a Honda rider, or we're going to put him ahead of someone else. Especially now that the Yamaha satellite team is is happy with their current riders and potentially getting Rossi there for 2 years and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, I don't know if Nagashima has a spot set in GP. It's not locked up like Jorge's or Mir's or a bunch of other people's were in the past. Will Jorge Martin be in GP? Maybe on a KTM alongside Binder.
Yes, in a I don't know if he'll be, but one of the things they want to do is, it's the same thing we talked about earlier, is that like the youth movement, right? Is that everyone's trying to catch that silver bullet, and so they're trying to find someone to get him up quick, get him into the fold, and and try to take a gamble and see if you catch that guy who just has amazing talent but hasn't had the right exact machine to win it yet, right? Like we've joked that Moto2 champions sort of traditionally, except for Marquez, don't do that well. Like, they
take stupid risks going to certain teams and then shoot their career in the foot.
Right. Zarco.
Yeah.
How bad does Binder make Zarco look right now?
Ooh.
How, like, we talked about how, like, Pole going to Repsol made him look bad because, Pole showed that if you put your nose to the grindstone, you can actually, and work hard on that Yamaha, on that KTM, you can get, like, the factor right. It is actually a stepping stone to something even bigger. And then look at what Binder does. He gets on there. He's fast. He's so quick right away. He's a talk of the town. He's one of the main storylines. And it's like, what, like,
well, and it's expectation comparison, right? Like Zarco was doing amazing and then went and did shit. Whereas Binder is like the new guy. We expect nothing from you, right? Alex Marquez has the expectation of finish the race. Could the expectations be any lower?
Right.
Like, but apparently though, if you're on that bike and your name is Pole Espargaro, then the expectation is you need to be on the podium. So it's a little, expectations change depending on who you are significantly. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm still bothered by the fact that we're talking about silly season for 2021 or 2022, and we still haven't yet finised silly season.
It's a condensed, accelerated season, Rob. Accept it. Run with it.
Well, Dovey is showing how dumb it is, and like, he's literally showing, like, he's actually saying, "Well, it's great. Glad I didn't take that less money because now I have a better gambling. I have a better chip. His hand just got stronger.
Yep.
Because one guy, busted.
Yep.
Like, his hand is literally stronger, and he knows what he could possibly do. And again, on the chat, I'm not saying he's gonna win the championship. I'm just saying if he was gonna, he's looking at the best. Like, he's looking at the best chance right now. This is it. This is the best chance. Injured right off the bat. Crazy season. While he's steady Eddie, who just puts his head down, doesn't say shit. He's not flashy. He's not particularly wild. He just does his job. He shows up on time. Like, this is his chance to get it. This is his chance to do it. And I'm not even saying, like, Nicky hated his way into the championship, like they're saying on the chat. I mean, literally, like, again, Nicky earned it too, but that was a crazy year. But this is one of those years where, like, just consistently being on the podium could be literally the difference between winning it or not.
Yeah.
It's like so the points got worth more because there are fewer points, right? Mm-hmm. So that means that gap between
their inherent value is higher.
Exactly. That gap between first and second, that 5-point gap, is now also larger because of that exact reason. Yeah. So you're definitely going to need to win more races, or the guy that can actually string together some wins is going to be much more likely to win the championship. And that still could be Mark, assuming he doesn't miss but one round. Right. And but
he'll have inherently missed 2 rounds. Yes, Mark can still win the championship.
50 points behind.
Yeah, Mark could still win the championship, and it wouldn't even surprise me if he does.
It won't. Right? He won the championship last year by what, 130?
Right. The question is, how well does he react to this? Because again, this is, people don't want to talk about in a vacuum. What's the risk? Like someone asked, what is the recovery time for a broken humerus? Well, in a perfectly normal, healthy person, it's 4 to 6 weeks. But what's the recovery time for a broken humerus when you've dislocated that shoulder twice and the other shoulder 3 times, and your whole upper girdle is fucked? And this goes back to my own
hyperbaric chambers, like, on the daily to have the best possible healing.
Right. This issue comes back to how I did, where when I injured my nerve in my neck, one of the things that happened was this section here atrophied like crazy. The top half of my pec didn't fire right, and the front half of my delt didn't fire right. What happened was 4 months later, I tore my rotator cuff. Now I was like 37-year-old. I'm not like some 70-year-old guy tearing his rotator cuff. In fact, when I was studying, like when I was trying to find studies on actual medical journals on best ways to recuperate, finding actual medical journals on rotator cuff injury and healing for non-geriatric patients is like next to impossible because it's so rare to happen in younger.
Climber literature is the only place.
Right,
you can
exactly.
Really get it.
So the question is how does this injury interact with his previous injuries? And how does potential nerve injury interact with a damaged, weakened shoulder to begin with? You have a lot of variables that you don't normally have.
So, Dennis, what do you got?
Well, Bilal in the chat said, some fear has got to creep in, right? Like, regardless of what the commentators say, he is human. The thing is that I kind of agree to that. I mean, I agree there's that cognizance up until the race starts, and I think that's what happened with Mark II in the last round. Is like, look, everybody's aware of what's at stake here. Shortened season, pandemic. You really got to finish first, before you
to finish first, you got to first finish.
Right. But the thing is, and I think, like I was saying, this is what happened in the red during the race, is that once the lights go off, they forget. It's that red mist, it's that hubris, it's that adrenaline. And especially in the case of Mark, where like, I just completely messed up. And yet here I am carving up the field. I mean, why should I stop? Why don't I keep going? And I think that, with Mark,
red mist, or go ahead, finish up. Sorry.
Yeah, basically when he comes back from recovery, from his injury, yeah, sure, he's going to be humbled by it and aware of it. But then that racer's mindset, once the lights go out, then who knows?
It's when red mist doesn't go wrong, it's just compartmentalization, right? It's just you block out all the things that you don't need and you focus on the stuff that you intend to do and you just do it, right? We talked about that a while ago. Actually, I don't know if it actually made it on the stream, but like Josh Herron kind of was struggling a little bit with the pandemic and not even having like family members at the track and in the pits because that is extra risk for him, which it absolutely is. And he was saying like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't race. I'm like, dude, the second you put a helmet on, like you're a professional racer, the second you put that helmet on, flip the visor down and the lights turn off, like that, all that stuff leaves your mind. And if you're not that type of person, you wouldn't be winning fucking races in a professional series. There's no way in hell. So yeah, I mean,
other than Crimea River, your family doesn't get to be at your job with you. That's dangerous. So what? Neither does any roofer, any fisherman, any policeman, any fireman, anyone in the military, any construction worker, any sewage worker, any agricultural worker, any farm worker. None of those people's family get to hang out with them too. But boo hoo.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people in the world where their family members get the phone call when you're already at the hospital. And
right. For instance,
that's how it's
the workers in Qatar.
Yeah. Well played on that one. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
My point to Dennis is he's had so Marquez, and not luckily, but kudos to him, has relatively gotten away scot-free. He's lived in mostly a consequence-free environment, right? Like other than in Moto2 when he had some eye damage and he had some blindness when he looked upward, which is difficult if you're, in a tuck, and they fixed it. He's never really had any major damage. Yes, he's dislocated his shoulders and that's not great, but the pain differential between a severed humerus is totally different. The question is does the pain that he's is this like compounding? Like, you know what I mean? Like again, yeah, your shoulder, like, yes.
That's interesting.
Because again, dislocating stuff sucks. I know I've dislocated a couple of things. It's not great, but for instance, he dislocated his shoulder when Scott Redding patted him on the back, but they popped it back in on the tarmac. It's a different story. Right? When you at what level does pain start to creep into, like, that shit is like primal. When you felt gnarly pain, it takes a while to forget that kind of pain.
I'm trying to recall right now if I can remember like a an instance where we've seen him do the cringe that he did off track here.
That's when I knew something was fucked up. When he had his helmet and he took it off, and then he had like a facial expression that was like, "Oh yeah, he's hurt for real." Like,
and they were like, he was calling over to other people and like
he's
I
like,
can't do this. Whereas with the shoulder, it was just
I'm
like, oh,
hurt.
Yeah,
he was
put it back
screaming.
in. That's new territory.
You know what I mean? Like, I am not.
He always learns. Like, well, I mean, eventually we'll get to the spot where he doesn't learn, but he always learns and he doesn't make the same mistake again. So
yeah, I wanted to make that same point earlier when you were talking, Rob. Is like, yeah, he usually makes his mistakes or his crashes during the pre-practices and whatnot, not during the race. But still, this happening during the race, I would be very surprised if he doesn't learn from it somehow.
He didn't learn in the race. He crashed in the same spot that he literally ran off the track and fucking nearly killed himself. But all they could talk about was, holy shit, that's the worst turn to crash in. That turn ended Mick Doohan's career.
But he didn't
Like,
See,
crash.
the first mistake didn't have any consequences. As the
Right.
second mistake,
You can. It's still a mistake even without consequences.
It had 8 seconds of consequences, and that's also why I didn't really think his red was that spectacular.
Right. That's a title of Rob's sex tape. 8 seconds of consequences.
All right. On that note, it's been an hour and a half, guys.
yeah,
Right.
There's
Title of Dennis's sex tape.
Oh
Fucking
damn!
Part
Oh,
one.
damn!
Part
one
one.
of the
Oh
trilogy.
damn!
Of the
Oh,
trilogy.
damn. All right, everyone. I think we're gonna call it on this one. You'll be hearing us from in like a week. So this is a lot of BrotoGP real fast.
What's crazy too is if he doesn't race, you already know there's an episode.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're victims.
Yeah.
We're victims of his mistake.
Oh my God. We're all right. I'm calling it. Check out Riders Law.
What's crazy too is before this episode started, I told a whole story about nearly dying while eating a piece of pizza, and I assumed Rob had pressed record, and he hadn't. So none of you guys got Kevin.
It's the origin of Kevin's
hatred
with the Hawaiian pizza.
Yeah, so that will come either in the next episode or maybe in an After Dark recording of some sort, which we still have never done. All right, guys. Thanks you two for joining on this, of course. All the fans in the live chat, thanks for hanging out with us. If you're listening not live on iTunes or Spotify or Google Play or all those good things, tell your friends. Thanks for checking us there. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. Maybe get in the comments on after this. We're trying to get more subscribers. We're trying to make this things go well. Now we've got Kevin HD and Dennis too. So
dang,
you better all like it. I promise I'm going to get Kev some more lighting next week for sure. No, he likes being. He okay, maybe a cat then.
He likes the mood. You know?
I'm in the mood. I'm in here. I got my rosé. I'm feeling sultry. It's all good.
Yep. Give the video some likes. All right, everyone. Take it easy. Peace.
If pizza's on a bagel, you can have pizza anytime.